Hello. Hello, and welcome to the second day of my reclaiming, my retelling. Today, I want to share with you my own healing revolution. Before I get into that, I want to get myself in the right energetic space. So I'm going to ring the bowl a few times. So when you arrive, say hello. Let me know who's here. With this bell, I'm clearing the air out of any of my own fears, any of the shadows. Getting settled into this space, claiming this space as a retelling of my journey. But before we begin, I just want to get a few things straight. So my eyes look funny. So let's see. Oh, Chantal, it's so nice to see your name there. Hello. I'm just going to get this figured out. There we go. And let me start. So by just picking 3 cards. One for you as my listeners, witnessers. One for me as a teller. One for us as healing agents in this world. All constantly in evolution. All constantly transforming and reclaiming our gifts. Okay. One for you. One for me. Ah, Amaya, I saw your name pop up. It's good to see you. One for me as the teller, as the raconteur, and one for us as healing agents in the world. I'm using my favorite earth deck. For you, spring equinox. How fitting. That's what it looks like outside. A rebirth. That is partly my intention for our relationship here too, to rebirth it. For me to show up in a different way, in a new way, in a more real way. And inviting you to step up even more in your power, your greatness. So the card for me is the ocean, ebb and flow. And there's a lot of ebb and flow in my story. And so I honor that. And for us as healing agents in the world, this is interesting. I like this one. The island, solitude. And that is not a typical card to come out for a message for us as healing agents. And yet it fits my story so well. Because my story is one of reclaiming myself. Undoing all of the murky energy, all of the holding other people's stuff for them, all of the ancestral crap that is not mine to hold, not mine at all to hang on to. It's actually mine to break. And this island, the solitude, speaks to that. for me. So finally, I'm going to have a little drop. Rosemary. And if you plan to settle in to witness the story with me as it wants to be told, I invite you to make this little space a little bit sacred for you too. A little essential oil, a little tea. You're so welcome to comment, to ask questions, to cheer me on, to cry with me, whatever shows up. Give me lots of hearts. Those are nice. So Crystal, going through a rebirth, new chapter. Yes, I think all of us are. How could we not? We have to. We have no choice. Okay, so here we go. Diving in to my healing journey. So, like almost everybody who goes on a healing journey, I had a moment that we can call rock bottom. It wasn't super dramatic. I wasn't homeless. Nothing terrible happened, but it was my moment where I could not continue going on the way I was going. So last night, I told you the story of my first boyfriend and how his attention blew up the emotions in me. And I told you the story about how I really had two modes. Miss Perfect, everything's good, big smile on my face. And the other mode, truth be told, was bawling my freaking eyes out, uncontrollable sobs. And if you've been following me for a while, you might get an idea that tears are just a way energy moves for me. But it was like that all through school, all through my childhood, either as like little Miss Perfect, smiling all the time, or I had pain. And that quickly transformed into just uncontrollable sobs. And these sobs, I couldn't make heads or nor tails of them because my life from the outside looked great. I was, so here in Quebec we have number systems, but the equivalent of a straight A student. I was captain of my volleyball team, my ringette team. I had friends that were great. And yet I have these uncontrollable sobbing moments. And I remember one moment where I was in the park with my mom. I was going around and I was crying like loudly, and my mom was just desperately trying to figure out what was wrong. And I didn't know. What it felt the most true for me at that time was the world hurts. And it's not fair that so many people are hurting. And I was sobbing, really sobbing about this. And so one of these moments of total sob fest were happening about a year and a bit in with my relationship with my first boyfriend. And I don't remember if I told you this, but I had the brilliant idea, not, at almost 19 to move in with him. And we had this really quite lovely little basement apartment on de l'Esplanade Street. And it was beautiful. It was a basement apartment, granted, but for an 18 and 19-year-old, two kids, we painted, we did it up real nice, and I wanted this taste of independence. And yet, deep down, behind that choice, I knew I knew it was a disaster in the making. I knew. I really knew, and I wanted it. I was 18 and I was bring it on. Bring it on. I was done being Little Miss Perfect. I was ready to make some big mistakes. Whew. So, what did I do? I moved in with him. I quit playing ringette, which was really like my social core for me at that time. And I'd never not played it since I moved to Montreal when I was 7. As an aside, nobody knows what ringette is. Don't worry about it. Ringette is a sport a lot like hockey. So you don't know this about me, but I'm a fucking great skater. I can skate around a lot, most hockey players. I quit that. I was at McGill for the first time, living on my own, living with his boyfriend, he was a really wonderful guy, but I mean, he couldn't be my everything. And I'd kind of chosen for him to be my everything. So the arrangement was, it's this basement apartment, and I think it belonged to his parents. It was his dad and his stepmom. And as such, they would sometimes come into this basement apartment without warning. Because the garage was attached to it, so they kind of had a reason of being there. But I really didn't like that. I felt, because I was so invested in having a mask on, that I couldn't even relax and be fully myself in my own home, which, mind you, was my first own home. So the breakdown, the rock bottom moment for me was towards the tail end of that relationship, that living together, because I was crying all day long. I'd go to school, I'd come home, I'd cry. I'd cry, and then I'd watch The Office, the British version of The Office. I'd cringe. I'd cry, I'd fail my programming class. Never failed anything in my whole life. I had chosen to do a double major of computer science and psychology because I wanted to approach artificial intelligence by really, really understanding both computer science and psychology. But what the fuck? That wasn't me. That was just an excuse. That was just like a way to loop my mind around to study what I really wanted to study, which was psychology. And I wasn't able to really own that decision, so I made up the story how I want to do this cool like AI thing, which had foundation. I did internships in McGill in AI, and so it was founded on something. But there I was, one of these days, loudly sobbing in this basement apartment, and I hear this noise. And who was there but my ex-boyfriend's stepmom. And I did not like her. I was so uncomfortable around here because she was so comfortable being unhappy. She was openly depressed. And thinking about her now, like, what? I missed such an opportunity. What a fucking awesome woman that is. Truly, she had rows and rows and rows of books, and she was a literature something. This is a woman with depth. And so she heard me crying. And she came up to me and she gave me the warmest hug. And she told me, this can't work. This isn't okay. If you're this unhappy, you have to do something about it. And I'd been told that by my mom. I'd been told that by the people who I was comfortable being that distraught around. And this was the only person that I could have really heard it from. And it was somebody I was uncomfortable around, somebody I didn't like, because she told me the truth. Not okay to be feeling like that, sweetie. Not because it's not okay to feel. I think she loved me more in that moment than she had until then. But because it wasn't okay to let myself be trapped in a prison of my own making myself miserable like that. So that was my rock bottom moment. Simple. And one of the things I'm most grateful for in my journey is that I did not need to wait for something worse. I answered the call. I was like, okay, I am fucking not okay. I'm miserable. And I have been for years. I don't know what it's like to be happy on the inside. I knew what it was like to project happiness. I'm very, very good at that. And probably most of the time I was actually really quite happy. I don't need to make it more dramatic than it is. So, what was available to me at 19 years old? Well, my mom had a cool psychologist she referred me to. And here's where my mom deserves so much credit. If you're one of these people in somebody else's life, if you're a Carla, like that woman was, or if you're like my mom, let me be the messenger for gratitude that will never be told. Doing good things is good. Being kind is important. And I know every single one of you is one of these Carlas. So thank you. So, my mom is a forward-thinking badass. I misunderstood her and got annoyed with that in her the whole time. Always with these theories that I'm like, no, Mom, that makes no sense. But in her motherly wisdom, she sent me to a therapist who didn't just do straight psychology. I mean, yes, he did cognitive behavioral therapy with me, and it was damn necessary. I needed everything I could get. And he did tapping. He did tapping with me. He taught me tapping. I got that tool at 19. I got the introduction to how the body, with its weird little acupressure points that nobody understood, and people are starting to understand now, but I got that introduction then, and I got my first tool that I could really use for myself. And I'm a quick learner. So I really did use this tool. And I got better, and I moved out of that apartment, out of that relationship. And I chose. My intuition knew I want to be a writer. That's what I really wanted when I was 17, 18, 19. And I had this sense that if I want to be a writer and I want to write about the human experience, I've got to live life. I can't be in my gilded cage at my parents' place. So I took courageous action, and I found another apartment, and I lived with somebody who was my roommate and I never really got close to at all. He was okay. I was okay. We were polite. But I lived on my own with this roommate for a while. And it's a really, really important part for my healing journey to say this, because it often gets overlooked, because we talk about the tools we talk about the rituals, we talk about the inner things, but the actual actions we take are also immensely important. So me getting out of that situation that was miserable, living with that first boyfriend, and getting myself honoring still my own desire to discover life, my own desire to exchange with life directly, not through my parents' house. Because staying in my parents' house at that age felt like sleepwalking. And I wasn't there for it. So I figured out how to make enough money to at least eat ramen. You get the student experience. I didn't have a lot of extra money left over, but I tutored. So I also started teaching really young. I tutored kids one-on-one to make money. And that was good. I actually returned in a relationship with this boyfriend, and it was so much better from there. And then my intuition was like, okay, so now we've done the independence thing. Now let's figure out this missing of the motherland thing. It was a very clear decision inside of me, like a healing impulse. Because like I told you in video 1, I had this pain of having immigrated. I'm an immigrant. A very resilient one. I've adapted to Canadian life perfectly. I consider myself completely Canadian, more than I am Dutch. But at 21, I didn't know yet. I didn't know how much of me was Dutch, how much of me was Canadian. And it was a schism in my being. I was separated. And so the intuition told me, non-negotiable, you are going to the Netherlands for a 1 semester exchange. I was 21. It was in 2008. Yeah, so 20 and then turning 21. I turned 21 in England. I went on a little side trip to London. So I went, and what? I was not Dutch at all. Oh my god. I could speak Dutch like really well. Nobody would, like, I look super Dutch. Like, I've got the height, the body type. Most Dutch girls aren't blonde. They're brown haired like me. And culturally, no. Not at all Dutch. That was a revelation for me, because it finally allowed me to let go of this, like, trying to figure out where do I belong, and like what are the rules of the society, and let me bend myself completely to it. And if I contort and bend myself enough, then I can finally feel like I belong. Or I should just go back to the Netherlands where I really belong. But yeah, nah. It gave me a sense of realization that belonging wasn't tied to a place. It was actually tied to something inside of me, a capacity to be myself, which I like violently explored. I lived 2 months in Amsterdam and then 4 months in Leiden. And as you can imagine, at 20, 21, you party a hell of a lot. And I met all the people from around the world who were also in exchange there, and it was sensational. I refound my confidence. I totally found myself. It is a mega cliche. Like, it's a mega cliche. Okay, you finish high school, you're in university, now you're going to travel to Europe to find yourself. Well, yeah. And it was healing. It was so healing. It was like such a balm. So I had broken up with that first boyfriend for real now to go. And was the beginning of an exchange really with me and life. No hiding with anybody else. And me too, Crystal. So happy. And from there, as I discovered being really me and being confident and a little cocky and really like enjoying being 21 years. I can't believe I was that young, because the next thing I'm about to say, I'm like, what? Hey, I was so full of myself, full of my life. And that when I met this Scottish man who was 35, I actually created such a healthy relationship with him. And we had so much fun together, and we healed each other just by an ease of experience in the relationship. And he would listen to me in a way that was super fun, and not like all of my emotions were going to be all over. Like, I had a handle on them. I discovered how to be angry a little bit. I discovered so many things, and that relationship was a true balm for my soul. And I'm really eternally grateful for that little taste, a little experience. So we were in the same country only for 2 months, and then we left it at that. I never got too serious. I returned home to Montreal, and I remember the confidence I felt. I remember I get it. I get how good life can be. And in Europe, and the Netherlands is not known for great food, but it doesn't matter. It's still in Europe for some reason. Food tasted better. Like, I remember coming home from that experience, like, so confident that I was in my parents' kitchen, because at that time it was time to move back in with them. And I would just like smell spices and like in this super sensual way, like just make these dishes like out of pure intuition and of pure magic. And it was an amazing high. And then my return home was weird. And one more semester, and I had grown so much. And I'd had other friends who'd also been on exchange, and they'd grown so much, and it was super cool to be with them. And then there was other friends who hadn't grown so much, and it was heavy. And then it didn't feel so great. And because I let the environment influence me so much, I slipped into what was the worst lost feeling of my life. I finished university. Was good because I had some structure, and then that ended. And I just had one class left, and it was time to launch my life. I'd lived my university years kind of wild and making big choices and being independent and trying things out and failing and free after that rock bottom. After that rock bottom. And then I was lost and floating in space. And then I latched on to that relationship I'd built in the Netherlands, and I got all clingy about it, and I didn't know at all what was next for me. I knew I wanted to do a master's one day, but again, I had this deep appetite for life and for, honestly, pain. This, like, how to describe it? Like, it doesn't make any sense to say this, but I had this hunger for a direct experience of life, and I wanted it all. I wanted the pain, I wanted the drama, I wanted the excitement, I wanted the highs, I wanted the lows, I wanted the everything in between. And And I lost reference. It was time to be an adult. And I think at 22, 23, of course we're equipped to be adults. And the way I grew up, I had a very long time to be a child and to be an explorer and to not have responsibility. And I'm so grateful for that, because that development period. So rich. That's what I get to share with you tonight. That's what I get to tell you. So I was super incredibly broke and lost. And it led me to make some really, really dumb decisions. Continuing to try to explore in that like wild way, but it was from a place of fear and grasping now. It was from a place of trying to cling on to something good. And that led to the absolute, hands down, worst experience of my life. That is not for public consumption. I caused deep pain to somebody I really, really loved. And it took me 10 years to forgive myself. And for this, I've only forgiven myself really last week. Accepting that this experience, I had coded it in my own being as I was the bad guy. I was the perpetrator. And I really was. And I was also the victim. And that piece, because I'm so into empowerment and I'm so like, there are no victims, I never allowed myself to see that. But I really was. My naivete, my appetite for life was exploited. And it led to tremendous pain. So that was rock bottom number 2. Never felt something so excruciating in my life. Truly. And that propelled me once more. That rock bottom made me see there is no way in hell I can let myself be this lost. Something has got to give. Really. A lack of boundaries I had at that time. No, wasn't okay. And so that first boyfriend, truly an amazing person, I went to him and I told him everything. I was so ashamed. But he was such a good friend. He probably still is. And he helped me make a plan. So good one. How am I gonna get my shit together? That was the plan name. How am I gonna get this shit together? So we made a plan for me to find a job, because clearly me having all this free time was causing harm. And also, and that's the narrative I had for a long time, and it doesn't mean it's the truth. It's really just a story. Because another narrative is, in that time where I was lost, guess what I did? I went on a 10-day meditation retreat without knowing what the hell meditation was. Just jumped in. Go. 10 days of silence. Can't be bad. So that also happened. I read Carl Jung. Pretty amazing that I read that at that time. Not easy to read, by the way. It was like, it jumbled my brain. What else did I do that time? I really let myself explore the fringes of psychology. So I'd finished my bachelor's in science. And so McGill has a very like neuro-oriented and experiment-focused psychology program. And I think that's brilliant and good because good science is not easy to do. And I think McGill trained me amazingly well because I can spot bad science. There's a lot of it. But the hunger, the part of me that was like, I'm gonna go suffer so I have something to write about. That little genius wild woman in me, she wanted the real psychology. She wanted the actual, what makes people grow. How come the same thing happens to two people and one person alchemizes that, transforms that, makes that into the best moment of their lives, and the other person is oppressed by it for the rest of their lives and a victim by it? I wanted to know that stuff. I was hungry for it. Had you said at that time that I was looking for the positive psychology, I would have agreed with that. But had you said that I was looking for like depth and even spirituality, I would have laughed at you so bad. I was like really like science minded. No. Spirituality is totally hokey. And only like crazy people think that stuff. And I don't really judge them because we need to believe in a higher thing to feel better about ourselves. 22, 23-year-old arrogant stuff. But I really was looking for my essence. I was looking for my purpose. I was looking for spirit. And how to find the differentiated channel that is me, that I could never find because I was so plugged in to everybody else. I was looking for that. And then this event happened, and I got serious about looking for a job. And miracle of miracles, all of this culminated into me finding a job at this magical little place called Hogwarts, NHC Institute. But it was like Hogwarts. And what you need to know about me is that I read Harry Potter 1 when I was 11. So Harry was 11 and I was 11. And then the books kind of kept coming out. I grew up with Harry Potter. Harry Potter was really my friend. And I have read the full series 7 times. And each time I find more depth. There's myth, there's energy healing in there. Magic is really energy healing. If you read it enough times, you're going to see that. So when I say NHC Institute was like Hogwarts, highest praise. So what did the NHC Institute teach? They had 4 flagship programs: naturopathy, so very nutrition focused, but much deeper than that. Massage, acupressure, and energy medicine. And I started by just working there. I had no idea what was in store for me. Oh my God, that was a wild ride. So I get hired. I remember I had like little heels on and I was like, I am so not qualified for this, but I'm going to present myself as confident. And I got the job. Good call, bad call, I don't know. The job was really being an office coordinator, whatever that meant. But really, it was in the beginning. It was like just managing things like when the cleaner comes and all the administration stuff, and very importantly, being the liaison with the teacher, making sure all their things are printed, like a secretary. And also the director, I was sort of making sure that her calls got screened and all of that. And I worked really, really close with her. And she was an amazing, badass, healer, powerful woman. And she became a very close mentor for me. And yeah, so at this time, right, okay, like I'm have my like wild exploring kind of out of my system, but I still have this like perfectionist tendency of always like showing the facade. And if I don't get something right in the first time, I crumble, and I crumble, I get pain, I get all the things I told you in book 1. And so that was hard. It was really hard. It was my first full-time job. I remember the first week I like would go to bed an hour before I got home, and then I'd get up an hour before I was scheduled to work again. That means like I slept 13 or 14 hours of just like absorbing so much. It was a whole new world for me. And as a perk, I got to take classes for free. And thank God for that. Because I don't know if had I had to have made that first investment, if I would have started. Because I was pretty invested in my science thing. And I was open. I think you're starting to get this idea that there's like this like wild, intuitive thing guiding my life. And then there's this like lid of cognition on top. And it was kind of a close call at any time which one would win. Now they're good friends now. And that is very pleasant because it sucked. It really sucked for a while. So I'm working at this job, and book 1, you can go back, you can watch it later. They're sort of they're related and unrelated. So if you want a bigger dose of this, you can go back. So I'm tight in my body, and I'm trying to do everything right, and what's required of me in this school is to be myself. And my mentor / boss would literally say these things to me. She would be like, hey, we hired you for this position, but really we want you to be yourself because you is pretty awesome. And if we can get you to be you, then the whole school would be better off. That is brilliant leadership, and I was not ready for it. I was like not there. I was like, no, just tell me who to be. I'll be who you want me to be. I can be that. But just tell me. So there's this like weird tension where I just didn't get the answer to that question ever. But I got to take classes for free. So I started with a class on sexology, which to me felt the safest of the whole bunch because it was close to psychology. And so I was like, okay, this is really cool. I love learning. Put me in a classroom, I am so happy. So I was really down. And then what happened? Then I took my next load of classes. And I think what it was, this week of September 2010, the epic week of my life. Seriously, like epic week. Because this is when I decided to jump in to what I will call the soup of consciousness that lasted for 2 years. This was kind of like putting myself in a stew and letting the meat fall off the bone. It's a disgusting metaphor, but it really feels true. It's like the soup of consciousness where all of a sudden everything was under examination and under discovery. So everything I'd been looking for, I found in my energy medicine courses. They demanded of me that I speak the truth. They demanded of me that I let go of all the tell me who I'll be and I will be it. I had to be true. I had to be real. And that's what was rewarded. The reward game shifted. It wasn't so much anymore like plug yourself into the system, figure out what it needs, go exactly where you need to be, and then nobody will notice you and everything will be okay. No. Now it's have a good look. What is you? And everything is energy. That was a confronting, impossible concept. I fought it tooth and nail because something dangerous in that. If everything is energy, how do I know how I fit in? I'm already part of the whole. If everything is energy, how do I know like what to do to belong? I already do. It kind of took the wind out of the sails of that hamster ego wheel thing. So, soup of consciousness time at the NHC at Hogwarts. I know you are feeling so jealous of me. I know. It's okay. I would be too. So, that week in September I referenced. Why do I remember that week of September? Because September 21, this was the first week of chakra healing journey. This course destroyed me in the best possible way. It's 12 weeks long. We looked at different chakras. We looked at energy. It was with Ramya, who I have continued to learn with for 10 years since. The next Wednesday evening was called Healing Journey. And we looked at the Enneagram, which is on my mind a little bit these days. And Enneagram is a very quick description of that. There's 9 energy types, and they're divided in 3 sections of 3. And each one has an emotion that they do not like to feel. And so if you missed book 1, you missed that emotions and me, not friends. We did not like each other. I either had 0 emotions or all the emotions. And like the in-between year, this forced me to develop an emotional language, and I couldn't figure out which type I was. I just couldn't. And doing these lives since yesterday, I'm really feeling the type 4 where it's like, I don't know who I am and I always have to look for who I am. Those overtones. But I've also been in type 3. Perfect. Success, outward recognition. And 2, like, let me help you so I don't have to be seen. All those patterns have shown up in my life. The rest of the wheel maybe. Okay, I'm back. I had to clear some stuff in my phone, apparently. So, where was I? And I think there might have to be a part 3. Okay, so a healing journey where I had to be in the soup of my emotions. And then on the Thursday, I went on this first date with this guy who took his very cute dog on first date. And I was really comfortable around, and I really liked talking to, and I felt really like that confident version of myself that I had learned in the Netherlands, and yeah, I liked him. So I married him. That all happened the same week. So Sean has been with me this whole journey, And on our first date, I was like, yeah, I work at this school. And it was like weird thing called like chakra stuff. Do you know what that is? I don't think I believe in it. Blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, he's been with me on the journey. And so, if you know, starting a relationship, that's intense. So that was starting my relationship with Sean, my 2 years at the NHC where I really took all the classes and I let this consciousness soup work on me. And I remember there was one moment where I came into the office of my mentor, Kiara, and I was like, I think I got it now. I think I figured it out. I think I'm good. And she kind of just laughed at me because anybody who's been on the healing journey for some time knows, yeah, that you have breakthroughs. You for sure do. And then there's more to excavate. And there's more to learn. And there's more to look at. And there's more to heal, claim, own. So, a few key moments in there were in the chakra journey where I was really using that as, oh, cool, let me find a new way to be perfect. Let me figure out how to be balanced in all my chakras. I have a checklist. I know who to be now. Hell yeah. And I just couldn't figure it out, what the teacher was saying when she was like, even the imperfections, even the imbalances are perfect. And I didn't get it until I did. And that was one of the most key moments of my own healing journey. How can even the imperfect be perfect? Asking that question. Asking the question of, what am I resisting right now? And that started off my real healing journey of healing my being hard on myself, which, continues to this day, although I'm so good now compared to back then. And what I understood at that moment is that, or not at that moment, I've understood way later, is that in the way that we've decided to respond to life is really gifts develop. So the gifts that developed by me being cut off from my voice as a child and teenager made me a damn good listener. And when I finally reactivated my voice, eventually, I think there's a really good storyteller in me. I'll have to discover, I'll have to practice a little bit more. If your heart is so overgiving, you learn how to love. You learn how to give of yourself really freely. Even if it comes out of a secret, well, if I love you like this, you're going to love me back, right? And then a resentment when that doesn't happen. So when you then finally move to healing and balance, you still get to love so deeply and so fully and so freely. And you get to learn to receive so fully and so deeply. So I took all the classes. So chakra journey was a really, really big one. I, of course, now teach that one online. And the intuitive reading classes, oh my God. I'd have nightmares. I was so scared, terrified of opening my intuition, of learning to see in a new way. Abject terror, honestly. And I have come to understand that abject terror was there because I have had, like almost everybody, or I do carry the energy of women being tortured for worshiping the earth. And that's in my energy, that's in my code. And when it was time to speak the language of that kind of goddess through intuition again, that fear tried to protect me. Yeah. I almost didn't make it through that. I was really, really scared. And with every layer of fear that peeled off, my intuitive abilities became clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer for it to be totally just normal and almost my bread and butter these days. So I'm getting a warning from my dear phone that I'm running out of space again. So this is going to be the moment of pause, and I'm going to have to tell the rest of the story tomorrow at 8 p.m. again. And this one will be the story of me as a healer. So now at this point in the story, I'm a baby healer, fetus healer. I'm just learning, and I'm healing. I'm really healing through these group programs. The one-on-one container for me, that's not how I healed. I healed through my courses. And that's why when I teach my courses, I have a sensitivity to, you're not just learning. No, you're not just learning. You're in a healing container. You're in a sacred healing container with others that are going to help that soup of you become the soup that is you. Your particular flavor. That's why I love group experiences, because that's where I healed. And every time I opened my mouth in these group experiences, and I would be asked to be telling the truth all the time, every time I'd cry. And it was so embarrassing because I worked there in a professional capacity, and how perfect to totally break that need to look perfect. So I'd have students coming in, talk about their, payment plans or whatever, and they had seen me talk with tears in my my throat the day before, and I would just have to accept that I was messy, accepting my messiness. And that was the big, I keep saying that, but it was a really big gift in life. Really big. That I did not get to play it like I got it all together. Nope. Students were there with me. We learned together. I was messy with them. And that taught me so much about each of our processes. Because, I was really, really, really messy in class. And I remember one night I needed to scream. And then we got shit from the neighbor. And I had to deal with that as the office coordinator, which eventually turned into me sort of running the school. It's a story for another time. Really not relevant. I really, really healed a lot through those containers, because there's something that happens when all the attention comes together with a common goal, a common intention. It starts working and massaging, and really I had the best teacher for this. Like, if you want this kind of healing, go see Ramya Memi. Her website is flowramya.com. She creates these incredible experiences. They're not very cognitive, they're not very explanatory, but they create this extreme container of healing, and all you have to do is step in that, be willing to heal, be willing to receive, and it happens. So, my NHC days, looks like I have a little bit more space on this phone. My NHC days ended with me going back to school. Me going back to school in the other direction, because I was still so split between my rational mind and my healing mind, because I had this very false belief that I had to give up my mind to do the healing work, that I had to not use it. And I've come to believe that that's really false. The mind can be an enormous aid, but you have to tame it. And taming it takes a lot of time and a lot of work, a lot of grunt every day by day work. But when you do, the mind is a badass. It really is. And it can really, really help you in your own healing journey and in facilitating healing journeys for others. So I went back and did my master's, and I was doing both at the same time. And like I was telling you about the schism in my being, like feeling like I had to either be in the healing or in the rational, but I couldn't be in both at the same time. So I challenged that in my behavior. And again, I want to put your attention to this. I didn't believe the crap in my mind. I put myself into situations that would force a new reality. And it was uncomfortable. It really was. Doing the master's was tedious and not so great. And I got a really good friend out of it. But I realized that the science is slow and I like fast. So that's really all I'll say about that. No, there's one moment in my master's that was very significant. I couldn't do it anymore, being so skizzed. And I really had this sense that, and at that I really don't have that anymore, thank goodness, because it was stressful. I really had this sense that, okay, well, I was going to find the science that was going to prove this energy healing stuff. I really had that like mission, and I thought I was the only one who could do that. Yeah, young. And it was a lot to put on my shoulders, and my mentor at university also had that, and he was working on that as well. But it helped me see that it was actually not as interesting an effort as the true questions that inhabited me all along were, because the true questions that have been inhabited me is, how do we create a life that is freaking amazing? How do we take every bad thing that happens to us and transform it into gold? Those are the true questions. How do we master ourselves in such a way that we can really shape the world in the image that we value? So for me, remember, I was crying my eyes out because the world was hurting. Well, all I really wanted to do was create something that would help the world to not hurt anymore. Ta-da! This is one iteration of that vision. So proving to people who didn't believe about energy healing was really like a waste of time. Once I saw that, I could really soar, but that took me years. I think I maybe was 29. It took me really a few years to let that go and to really tap into the extreme depth and magic that is available in energy healing. When we do master energy healing, or really any healing modality, when we master our own healing and our own self and our own energy, how we are able to create. My aim is to be able to create on demand. I'm not there yet, but I am and have been able to create things that are of true value to me. And I know many of you are also like that, but I really place an emphasis on that because in the New Age world, we often believe that it has to be comfortable all the way through. Not my experience. Actually, to create things of value, you place yourself in things that are really, really uncomfortable. and you stick with it because it's worth it to stick with. It's a shit sandwich you want to eat. That's how Elizabeth Gilbert puts it. You need to find that something that the shittiness of it doesn't matter, because what you really want to create is in that shittiness. That's where you find the gold, the magic. So that's why I want to point that out. And then I had this another magical moment that I will start next conversation with. And that was the magical moment where I was wondering, I have a certificate now of energy healing. I got a grant of $10,000 from my master's out of nowhere. I have enough money to live. I have time with my master's. Do I start practicing professionally? And the story of how I decided to say yes to that will be tomorrow. Okay. I'm having so much fun doing these. Thank you for witnessing. I appreciate all of you so, so deeply. And I will perhaps see you tomorrow for the story of how my healing business has healed me tremendously. Has been the biggest accelerator of growth after, all the other ones. But that's where the real goodness is, where it brought me to where I am today. So we'll recap. The first 2 years of my healing experience were really to start being truthful, start being loving towards myself, and submit to the learning, submit to the healing soup of the NHC Institute. Okay. Bye.